Firstly, I'd like to start by offering my sincere condolences on the death of the lovely Sue. While we had our time together, please feel free to be where you're at. Don't feel you have to put something on or behave in a certain way because you're in church, because it's family, isn't it? It's family. So if at any point you feel you need to go outside or have a little break, do whatever feels right for you at the moment. We know that we grieve because we love, and we can't make that go away, nor would we want to. But as you mourn your loss, release it into God, because grief can become something that just stays and goes deeper and kind of can become unhealthy when it gets locked in. So as we grieve, we release that grief into God, and it becomes, in that process, a healing, because it is part of our healing. This is the time to be slow. Lie low to the warm until the bitter weather passes. Try as best you can not to let the wire brush of doubt scrape from your heart all sense of yourself and your hesitant light. If you remain generous, time will come good, and you will find your feet again on fresh pastures of promise, where the air will be kind and blushed with beginning. God in our friendships, what can you say? At a time like this of heightened emotion, we are so much more aware of the beauty of friendship, the value of friendship. We're so much more grateful for friendship because suddenly we're focused on the fact that it was there and has, in one sense, has gone. And we can't live at that heightened level of awareness every day in every relationship that we have, in every situation. Though I think gratitude is something that we can learn to live with daily. And maybe for our eyes to be opened in a new way to the beauty of the relationships we have, or the value of other people. Not all relationships are easy, we'll come on to that in a moment. But the beauty and the worth and the value of every other human being. In this country there is a massive amount of loneliness. I'll just read you a couple of stats. By mid-2025, 8.3 million people were living alone, almost 1/3 of all households. Just over half of solo dwellers are over 65, and the rise in numbers is due to increased life expectancy and bereavement. Data from late 24, early 25 shows about a quarter of adults felt lonely often, or some of the time, with higher rates among younger adults between 16 and 29. I'm sure we could discuss that and why we think that is, but just so this huge amount of loneliness. And part of it, I think, is so many of us don't know how to receive friendship and how to give friendship in a way that's healthy. So, okay, what do people think makes... I might adapt as I go along, by the way, because I heard your news after I prepared, and I've already changed it somewhat, but we'll see how we go. So, what do people think? It's all right, unless it's a word I can't spell, I'll go for it. What do people think makes for a good friend? What qualities make for a good friend?
Consistency.
Oh, consistency. Do you want to? Prestige.
Trustworthy.
Loyalty.
Trustworthy. Loyalty. Loyal. Consistent. We're slightly changing the grammar here, aren't we? Loyalty. Okay, that's okay.
Availability.
Oh, yes. Availability, yeah.
Have your back through thick and thin, or just have your back.
Have your back. Yeah.
Sense of humour. Accepting. Non-judgmental.
Sorry?
Accepting. Non-judgmental.
Oh, yes, I like non-judgmental. It's a wonderful thing if you can be with someone who can call something out, but without being judgmental, isn't it? That's a gift. Anything else?
Good at listening.
Supportive.
Supportive and
Who loves you no matter what.
unconditional love. Unconditional and supportive. Okay.
Honesty.
Oh. Honesty.
Doesn't have to agree with you.
Doesn't have to agree with you. The only way I can write that is doesn't have to agree with you. Okay. All right. That's not a bad list, is it? It'd be nice if we all could look at that and think, well, I've got a friend who is this, and this, or that, and that. But it would be amazing if you found a friend who's absolutely all of those. I went online, it was so depressing. And I found this site that had 22 traits of a good friend. Not, some of these makes it. And it was all of those on the list. They live with integrity, they're trustworthy and honest. Dependability is their middle name. I've never met anyone whose middle name is dependability. They're loyal, they have empathy for others, they're good listeners, confidence is contagious, spend time with you makes you feel good, they make you laugh, they're non-judgmental, they're low maintenance, they respect your boundaries, they align with your friendship goals, they encourage, and it goes on and on and on. It's like, oh my goodness. And I think I found it depressing, not because those things aren't real, but because there was this website saying if you don't have friends who are all of these things, you need to think again. I think, oh my glory. Sometimes you think you've found a friend who is maybe, trustworthy, and then something happens. So we're going to have a little clip now. I was advised after I had submitted this clip that it has a swear word in it. So if you're a particularly anxious nature and want to put your fingers in your ears, do feel free. I hope it's only one.
It is, but it's not only one.
Oh, it was only one, was it? Jolly good. And now you'll all be listening. It comes near the beginning, so that's all right. Okay, thank you.
Please reveal, are you faithful or are you a traitor?
I am, and have always been, a traitor.
Oh, fuck.
That was the one.
I'm so sorry. Oh, it's been tearing me apart. I'm so sorry. This is brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. You did brilliant. It's a game. I'm just like, you did brilliant. It's a game. You played absolutely brilliant. Well done. You did brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. It's amazing. You've done brilliant. You've done brilliant. Don't be scared. Think about the charity. It's amazing. Come on.
Alan, you have won the game. Congratulations. You have been absolutely outstanding. Faithful. Well done. You made it this far.
Okay, that's
Is there
that's
anything
great,
you
thank
would
you.
like to say?
Did you guys see that programme? No? I had never seen, my son kept on, but you've got to watch it now. And this was celebrity traitors. And the idea is that within this group of about 20 people, there are 3 traitors, and they spend several days doing activities and things and trying to work out who is a faithful and who is a traitor. And so this guy, Alan Carr, he irritates me a little bit, but, you know, Alan, if you ever hear this, I think you're lovely. But all the way through, he was, all the viewers knew that he was a traitor. And the traitors would get together and make their plans, and it was like, it's really mean. And he ditched one of these lovely, Celia Imrie, she's like a national treasure, and he betrayed her and got her thrown out. And then at the end, that whole mix, isn't it fascinating? That this guy was a traitor, and then he burst into tears and said, oh, it was so horrible, I hated doing it. And they were going, oh, it's all right. Because it was a game. It was a game. He won a lot of money for a charity. Most of us have had difficult and painful experiences with people who we feel have let us down or betrayed us, they've misunderstood us, we have felt taken advantage of. And it's so hard when we've let somebody in, and it can leave us determined not to let it happen again. And a lot of people put up a barrier at a particular point in their life where they say, I am never going to let someone do that to me again. And the walls go up and they stop forming relationships. They stop trying to trust or trying to learn how to do that. I want to say at this point, this is a kind of disclaimer as well. I'm any better than you are at relationships, at friendships. So please don't take it that I'm here telling you this is how to do it. Well, I am. But I'm telling myself as well. I'm telling myself this is how to do it, or not do it. But the other side of that coin is when we've done it to other people. And I only thought of that after I'd finished preparing this, because it was all about other people. It was all about what other people have done to us, what other people have done to me. And I thought, there are times, there would have been times where I've done something and I've hurt another person. And I hope I'm big enough to apologise. I do remember years and years and years ago, I was in my 20s, part of a big church in South London. And somebody came up to me, someone I knew came up to me and said, I just want you to know I've forgiven you. I had no idea. Up to this day, I have no idea what I did. But clearly, I'd done something that upset them. I'm not saying that what they did is a good idea. I don't think that's a good way to rebuild a friendship, if that's what you want to do. But it was very odd to realise that I'd done something that had upset someone. So, it works all around. It's kind of a level playing field. So what can we learn from Scripture about friendship? It's just intriguing because the Bible is just so fascinating. It is full of really dysfunctional relationships. So it's not an obvious go-to say, look at this, God is giving us these perfect examples of friendship that we can follow. So it's very helpful if we know and understand what we're reading and what the context is and what did friendship mean in the culture then, and is it the same as this? Is this what was meant by friendship? So elements of it would be the same, but there would be elements that are contextual. We can look at Bible friendships and try and pull out from things that we kind of resonate with, or we recognise and think that's what I want in a friendship. But let's have a quick look. So in the ancient Middle East, the word friend could be used in many different ways. So one was a political ally would be called a friend. You know, we supposedly have a special relationship, don't we, with the United States. We won't go there. We won't go there today. This is not the place. But in those days, that would have been called a friend. So these days we call it a special relationship. So a political ally, where there was a treaty maybe between kings or something, they would then refer to the other king as the friend. Friendship meaning political loyalty. We tend to choose our friends based on shared interests, on personality, on mutual support. They're often quite separate from work and politics. They're more feelings, emotions based, or activity based. Back in the day, friendship in a cultural context was really quite interesting. There were formal obligations. So if people were recognised as friends, there were certain expectations put on them, certain obligations, and an expectation of loyalty. Friends were expected to defend one another publicly, offer material aid, support each other in disputes, and betrayal of a friend could be seen as a moral and social crime. So it was quite a big deal, not just a personal issue. So although, you know, we've got loyalty up here, it's valued in our day and age. It's not enforced by law or by religion or by community expectations. And the ending of a friendship has fewer social consequences. It's kind of sad, it's disappointing, you know, everyone's a bit unsettled by it. But there's not a kind of legal or community-based way of dealing with somebody who's messed up a friendship. Back in the day, friendship could be hierarchical. So a powerful patron and a dependent client could still be called friends. We generally expect our friends to be equals. True friendship is considered more difficult, maybe between a boss and an employee, because it gets a bit more complicated, doesn't it? There are different layers. In churches, sometimes between the clergy and the congregation. Friendships, personal friendships aren't always, they don't always work for us. Sorry, just in general. Or where there's perceived to be some kind of power imbalance. You know, it's much harder to assess what friendship is. Back in the day, oh no, hang on. Yeah, no, that's right. Back in the day, emotional intimacy did exist. There were deep and profound friendships, deep affection, grief over loss, loyalty to death. We don't know if deep friendships involve the amount of self-disclosure as we look for today. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't, but I wouldn't mind betting, if I was a betting person, that any age, any period of time, you get a bunch of women together and there'll be a lot of self-disclosure, there'll be a lot of chat. I remember some years ago, we went through a phase in church where the pastor kept talking about friendships of promotion. Friendships of promotion. He got it from Aristotle. We talked about friendships of utility. And it was like, all the women in the church were like, what is this? Sorry about this name, it's such a blokey kind of thing to say. That your friendships have to have some purpose to them. There's a reason for them, and they're you know, mutually beneficial or, you know, whatever. But it all became very kind of formal and formulaic, and all the women are like, bunch of women together, they'll create, they'll produce something that's very connecting. Okay, so let's have a brief look at some of the relationships and then we'll be rounding up. Ruth and Naomi, the one we read, is very interesting because there were definitely obligations involved. Naomi was the mother-in-law of Ruth. Naomi had a husband and 2 sons and 2 daughters-in-law. Very sad, her husband died, and then so did both her sons. So she was a widow, and so were her daughters-in-law. And basically, she released them from any obligation that they would have put to her in that culture. And one of them goes and leaves, and the other one, Ruth says, "Do not press me to leave you, or turn back from following you. Where you go, I will go. Where you live, I will live. Your people shall be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried." And it's so beautiful, and it's so deep. And you know, she was in the line of Jesus. Jesus was one of the many further on descendants of the beautiful lady Ruth. Then you get David and Jonathan, where scripture says their love was greater than the love of women. That's also a sermon for another day. But also I found out, did you know, Jonathan was about 30 years older than David? Did you know that? I had no idea. I always assumed they were like, you know, the same age. No, he was much older. That's by the way. Jesus and the disciple John. It's a real heart-to-heart relationship that comes through in Scripture between Jesus and particularly John. But what I find most interesting is Jesus and his disciples and the friendships they had. Jesus shows us in his relationship with his disciples not how to get friends, but how to be a friend. So we read the other passage, which, there's a lot in there that you could unpack. I could have done a whole sermon just on that passage. But it gets to the point where it says, Jesus says to his disciples, "I no longer call you servants, I call you friends." So what did that mean? So if we understand that to begin with, the disciples' relationship with Jesus was very, it was understood within the cultural context. So Jesus was a rabbi, he was a teacher, and he had followers, he had disciples, he had pupils. So the relationship was a very recognisable one. It was already quite radical in that he had female disciples, which was unusual. Well, probably unheard of. But there was a very clear hierarchical relationship between Jesus and his disciples. There was even a kind of a covenant agreement in a relationship like that. So what does it mean when Jesus says, "I no longer call you servants," because that's how they would have been seen, as serving their master. "I now call you friends." What it doesn't mean is Jesus is saying, "You're my chums now, you're my mates, we're all going to be mates together." That's too thin. But because what he was doing was changing the whole understanding of what the relationship between a rabbi and his disciples should be. Friendship implied equality of honour, not just affection. Shared honour, mutual loyalty, to the point where it costs you something. Well, we know that because Jesus says immediately after, "Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends." So he called them his friends and he laid down his life for them. They called him their friend. That must have felt very strange for them. And although to begin with they didn't get it, they ended up also laying down their lives for their friend. So he's redefining status and authority. He's still the leader. He's still the rabbi, he's still the teacher, but he was introducing a sense of equality. He's bringing himself to their level without removing their call to obedience. Hence, if you love me, you will keep my commands. So that still is within that structure. That's not Jesus saying, you're my mate, you've got to do what I tell you. That would be a misunderstanding that we've brought out of our 21st century understanding. To still obey was because he was still their rabbi, he was still their teacher, he was still their Lord. He doesn't deny his authority, but he reframes it. And friends obey because they understand and because they trust. Because a friend was brought in to that inner place of understanding why something was happening, or why something was being planned, or why something was being done. Because Jesus says in that passage, a servant doesn't know what his master is doing or why his master is doing something, but a friend does. So Jesus was bringing them in to this place where, I mean, they didn't get it. So when he says to them, I'm going to die, oh, no, you can't do that. He was trying to bring them in to a deeper understanding of what he was about, of who he was and what he was doing. And they didn't get it. But they did, in the end. He knew, we're nearly done, he knew his disciples well. He knew who would betray him, he knew who would let him down, and he knew who would misunderstand him. But he still called them friends. He knew their shortcomings and their weaknesses. That's why, and this is something for the wise in this day and age as well, it's why he didn't call Judas to build his church, who, following his betrayal, killed himself. It's why he did entrust it to Peter, who, having betrayed him, repented and led the church, became a different person. He kept his friends without losing his own way, without becoming bitter or cynical. Whoa. He knew, he understood them. He knew what was going on. He knew how to be a friend and he knew how to let them be friends. He could see, he understood what was going on. And there's something for us in that, to understand people. I'm sure you're aware that in all our relationships, even without thinking about it, we decide as we go along how much we're going to trust. So there are some people who we would tell absolutely everything. There are some people who would tell some things. Some people we wouldn't tell much at all. Sometimes we don't tell people not because we don't love them, but because we know they wouldn't be able to handle it. So we don't entrust them with something that would be too difficult for them. And we're doing it all the time. So we're already, and it's something that, let me just stop rambling and finish what I've got to say. How did he do it and how can we do it? John 13. Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands and that he had come from God and was going to God, etc., etc., he washed his disciples' feet, which at that point included Judas. He knew who he was. Jesus knew who he was. He knew where he had come from, he knew what he was here for, and he knew where he was going. And there's something about befriending ourselves. Befriending ourselves, it sounds a bit odd, but when we truly respect and value ourselves, one, we won't look to others to make up for some lack in us. And we will learn how to respect and trust others. Because a lot of what we do in our relationships comes out of our own need or our own lack. And I know that personally. I've done it a lot. So when we truly respect and value ourselves, we won't look to others to make up for our lack. When we love ourselves, we won't need to score points off each other, compete, or require proof of another's love. We will grow in wisdom, discernment, in resilience, and in grace and kindness. When we know that we've come from God, from love, We are in God, in love. We are going to God, to love. We can genuinely love and serve others and discover friendship in God.